Get ready to take your financial practice to new heights with the Elevated Advisor podcast. Hosted by online business mentor David Scranton, this season recap episode features some of the top insights from our best financial advisor guests on how you can excel in the financial services industry. So are you ready to become an Elevated Advisor? Let's get started.
Jeff, you know, you remember these days. In the late 90s, I started doing dinner seminars. And I was immediately credible because there weren't a lot of people doing dinner seminars. And people thought, well, gosh, if you can afford to feed all of us, you must be the real deal. Unfortunately, that doesn't work with dinner seminars anymore, especially if you're here in Southern Florida where I am. You know, I can go to Ruth Chris Steakhouse on a financial advisor virtually every night of the week. That doesn't posture you as it did before. But if you have your own radio show, guess what? You're still looked at as the expert. If you have your own book, you're still looked at as the expert. So good point. Now, let's talk about the process, okay? How much time of yours did it take? Talk about from the first interview and then edits and what you had to go through to make this yours, to make it a strong book. You had a ghostwriter, but still, it's not effort-free, right?
It's not anywhere even close to effort-free. Yeah. We did an 8 to 12-hour brain dump of all of my ideas, recorded that by video and audio, and then I wrote the paragraphs out for each chapter that I wanted in the book, and then I elaborated that on further, and then the ghostwriter and I would trade off, okay, what do you want to say about here? And then I would subscribe out, and then they would scribe out, and then it had to go through, of course, compliance, which was no fun at all. Remember, Dave? Anyway, that's no fun.
I actually do remember that, yes.
So it took about a year, though, to prepackage it up and get it done correctly, because then once the manuscript is done, then you've got to get it indexed and scrubbed out for grammar and then printed and produced.
So it took you some time up front that day when you did the brain dump, a day or two on the brain dump, I get it. And then after that, how much time would you say it took you every week as you went chapter by chapter with the ghostwriter back and forth?
Well, the last couple of months were the most fast and furious parts of the effort line, but I would say I was probably putting in anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a week on the book over that time frame.
Good. So, you know, the good thing about having a ghostwriter is you're going to get a better quality book that's actually going to be readable, right? A lot of financial advisors, if they just write the book themselves, it's too technical. And yes, some engineers might read it, but most, quote, normal people aren't going to read it, right? So that's where the personal stories come in, and a good professional writer can help. But again, you can't just put your hands up and let that person do it. You've got to keep your fingerprint on it so that people know, hey, this is you, and it's got your seal of approval.
That's a really good point, Dave. You know, I went through 3 ghostwriters before I found the one that I liked, and
the third was yours, right?
Yeah.
The third, yeah. The third was the one you. Yep.
The third was the one I picked, but you know, you've got to find somebody that's going to match your tempo, your style, your information, your brand. This book has got to be about you. You cannot rely on the ghostwriter. The ghostwriter is just there to add the icing, but your content is the cake, and that content's got to come from you.
But let's get back to the PR side, okay? Because that's what this is about here. And again, your major lead generation source last year that gave you most of your revenue is from PR. Now, you've been doing PR now for, 8 years or so?
Yeah, it's been 8 years.
And now you've built relationships. I know you have a great relationships with one of the anchors on Fox Business, right? So as a result, you've been on there on a regular basis, and because you're on there on a regular basis, people get used to seeing you, and because people get used to seeing you, people are calling you from all over the country wanting to throw money at you. And so, I mean, it's not quite that easy, but it's kind of sort of what's happening, right?
Yeah, and it's like anything, right? It's just like when you're building a business. The first several years, you may not get the initial results that you want, but you got to have that goal at the end in mind with what you're building, because the PR, you're building your brand. The other thing that you are also building is your reputation. You know, what I find interesting that I learned over the last 12 months is a lot of these folks that have invested with us, they've been watching me on Fox Business and other networks for years. And so, you know, that's their vetting process. They want to see what your message is. They want to see if you're full of hot air, if you seem like a genuine person. And they want to make sure you're accurate too, right? When somebody's trusting you to manage their assets, they want to know what your philosophy is and if it's in line with them. So for someone that's going to start out doing PR, I would tell them that patience is key in regards to just sticking to it. Because again, it took me 7 years to really see any real results. And now the results are more than making up for lost time. And to your point, humbly say, I like to say we're continuing to build our brand as a company. And look, as an entrepreneur, if you ever want to sell your business one day too, that brand recognition allows you to get a better multiple on your company.
Right.
So it's not about getting those initial dollars and cents. It's looking at the big picture and building a brand.
Well, I know your theory too. You espouse the same theory that I do, that successful people don't do things to see if they'll work. They do things until they work. But for you, the gravitation toward PR was a natural, right? Because you worked in a previous life as an anchorman on the news, so you just had this natural affinity toward PR. Is that correct?
Couldn't be further from the truth. I tell you, the one thing with PR is you have to be coachable, right?
Yeah.
It's, I'll tell you, my very first interview, I remember like it was yesterday. My knees were shaking so bad that I gave an answer, and my family knew I was on TV for the first time, and they were sending me text messages. How did it go? And I told them, I don't know what the hell I said because I pretty much just blacked out.
Yeah.
And that is a natural thing. And then you just get coached up, and you get coached, and I watch my videos even now over and over again, just to kind of make sure that I'm happy with the work that I put in. Just like as a football coach, I'll watch film.
Yep.
I'll watch a game film 3 or 4 times because you'll pick up something small every time.
That's right.
And those X's and O's matter.
I always talk to people too who they open up a independent financial services practice, right? And they think, okay, this is where I want to be. And they make a decision because they want to have an office there. They think it's cool. Maybe it's close to their home. But most people never do the demographic study before they position the office. And they find out if they went just 7 miles this way or 7 miles that way, they might be in a much better market. So point well taken about the research. But let's pivot for a second, because I know you're talking about people that are either newer to the business or people who are maybe just don't have those systems that are in place. But how about if you go up a notch? How about if you get to people who've been around for a while that are maybe slightly bigger producers? What are some of their issues? What are some of the things that they tend to struggle with a little bit more, other than lead generation? Let's say I've got my calendar reasonably set out. I have a decent number of appointments. Now, what are my pain points?
Yeah, so the natural evolution is you got to get your calendar full of qualified leads first. Okay, so that's step one. Get your calendar full of qualified leads. Get busy, get at-bats, get those practices. But then you start to realize as the clients are coming in, you're not closing, you're not adding new clients at the level that you want to. So you start to realize, how do I get my closing ratios better? And that's the evolution sort of number 2. So now you got a calendar full of leads that are qualified. Maybe some of them are warm, maybe some of them are not. You've got to get really good at your sales process. And what does really good mean? So a lot of times when I'm talking to advisors, I will say, walk me through your sales process. And again, I'm a salesperson, and if you said, hey, is your sales process written, I would probably laugh and say there's absolutely no way. And most salespeople just don't have written sales processes. And again, we'll go back to analogies and we'll think about it in this term. Do you think when Tom Brady goes out on the field, he's winging it? Or do you think that he has a playbook that he has practiced and practiced and practiced?
I would say he's good enough that he might be able to get away with winging it. But no, I doubt that he's winging it.
Could he wing it for 16 weeks throughout the playoffs and the Super Bowl?
He's far
right?
too disciplined to be winging it.
It's discipline and systems. And your sales process is something that's either going to skyrocket your business forward with a quantum leap, or you're just going to be stuck and plateaued. And a lot of times, to your question, that producer hits ceilings, right? And they can only hit a certain number of production because their sales process might be too lengthy. They might be missing some things that they just didn't pick up the opportunity because they didn't have the right questions, the right systems, the right processes. Or sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too, I don't run an A sales meeting every single time, right? Because I didn't have the systems and processes and checklists in place. And sometimes I'll walk out of a meeting, and this is over 25 years, thinking, man, I wish I would have said this. I wish I would have said that. So again, if your sales process is written, and I don't like necessarily the word role playing, but if you practice your sales process, just like the way a professional practices their music or practices their sport, whatever it is, whatever that discipline is, if you practice that and treat it like a discipline, just like exercise and everything else, you can get really, really good at it.
But Barry, I'm a fiduciary. I need to have flexibility because I need to do the right thing for the client. You're trying to put me in some canned sales talk, some canned sales spiel, and I can't do that as a professional.
You know, I love that. I actually love that because that's one of my favorite responses that I get from advisors all the time too. Because again, hey, I've done this all by myself. I've built this business. You know, I don't necessarily need this process or the system, but I'm telling you, if you have the system and the process, your closing ratios will go up. They just will. And if that's the point of the game, is the point of the game freedom no matter what, or is the point of the game to close more sales? Yeah. Now, within a written system, don't get me wrong, Dave, this isn't about being a robot. It's simply understanding what the plays are on the field that you have in the playbook, listening to the client, and then reacting. Again, I'll be lazy with sports analogies. It's the number of clubs that you have in your bag. Like if you ever play golf, do you use all your clubs? No, but you might need that club just depending on how you're reading the wind or where the ball's lying or where the pin is. You are still the person that's making those decisions just like you would with the sales process, but you've got a system in place.
Let's give advice to, financial advisors that maybe up to this point have been rugged individualists, right? There are some people who aren't as humble as you, and whether it's being a Christian that gives you the humility or whatever, I don't know, but I'm sure it helps. But you have to have the humility in order to be coachable, to even seek out a mentor, right? If you think that you've got, all the answers, or you're just very, very autonomous, right? Like, we use, as you know, we use Culture Index a lot when we're hiring somebody as a profile like a Myers-Briggs, and one thing it tests for is your level of autonomy, right? So if your A trait, your autonomy is off the chart, you might fight it. Like me, right? My autonomy is off the chart when you give me a Culture Index survey, right? It's 3 standard deviations to the right. It's crazy, right? But still, I sought out mentors because of the humility side of it. So what would you tell people that have that high autonomy trait that might be rugged individualists to figure, I can figure it out myself?
Yeah, don't reinvent the wheel, right? Don't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of people who have gone through this, and don't think so highly of yourself that you're better than everyone. While that may be the case, right? You might be better than everyone. You might be the best salesman. You might be the best person to help this person. There is so many pieces in this industry that I am still learning about, right? I mean, I'm a finance major. I've been in the option world. I've been on the institutional side. I'm on the retail side. I have a lot of different pieces that I can fall back on and have experience with. And every single day, I'm learning something new.
Yeah. There's always somebody who's doing bigger numbers than you in this business. And it's like, early 2000s, I was profiting over $2 million a year, full-time financial advisor, working most of the time 4 days a week. Life was pretty good. And then I come down in Southern Florida 15 years ago and I buy a house. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, I'm a successful guy. And you come down to Southern Florida and you see these 100 and 200-foot mega yachts and these huge waterfront properties. And all of a sudden you realize you're really just this big. There's always somebody that's bigger than you. So no matter how successful you are, if you want to get to the next step, somebody like you, right? You're a smart enough guy. You can figure most things out on your own. But why would you want to take 10 years to figure it out and reinvent the wheel when the wheel exists? You can get there in 2 years by learning from the right mentor.
Yeah, standing behind someone and just watching them do it. And everyone's going to do it a little bit differently. And at some point, you're going to have to say, okay, this is how I'm going to do it.
That's right.
At some point, you're going to make it your own, right? But you don't need to write the book. Right? Read everyone else's book.
Yeah.
Understand what everyone else is doing.
Well said.
And then pick it up and take it from there.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about variable annuities a little bit later, because what you're going to find out is Dave has a real interesting story about some trials and trepidations and some fears that he had when he first made the transition and how he was able to resolve those seamlessly. But, again, focusing on the positives, you shared with the benefits for the client of making the transition. But what were the benefits to you in terms of your ability to market and generate leads? taking the FINRA shackles off?
Oh my goodness! Well, it allowed me to become my own entrepreneur through, getting rid of FINRA and being able to be Series 65 licensed, become an investment advisor representative, and then affiliating with a very good FMO where I could do more individual advertising, promoting my business, and differentiating myself from being just someone that's affiliated with a firm as part of like an employee. I wanted to go out on my own and seek my own clientele in that manner.
Some of those types of marketing, FINRA simply wouldn't allow you to do because the rules are too constrained, correct?
Yeah, that's right. They're just too constrained.
So looking back now, once you got past the first 6 months or so of the transition, after you got past that, have you ever looked back and regretted the decision?
Never.
I've always, that's the answer I always get every time I ask people the same
Never.
question.
I'm not going to lie to you, though. I mean, there was some trepidation. There was some nervousness.
Yeah.
I mean, to go from a no-fee background, basically a commission-based background, to a fee-based advisor, I mean, it takes a while to build up the revenue. It takes a while to first of all, you need to do it for the right reason. The right reason is it's better for the client.
Yeah.
Second of all, over time, it allows you to become more autonomous. It allows you to do what's right for yourself as well as the client.
Last question, and it's going to be a long answer, I know. You're a busy guy, right? Why are you doing a podcast? What's your vision for the show? And how are you hoping to leverage it?
Yeah. So my passion, I realized after I started mentoring advisors in 2006, we started Advisors Academy, which is our FMO, our NMO, FMO, NMO, IMO. Most of you know what that is. Some may not if you're with a brokerage firm. Basically a wholesaler for fixed and indexed or annuities or life insurance, right? So we started that, and that was in 2006. But in 2008, I had one last push. I said, I've never heard of an advisor that with his own pen has written 50 million of annuities. A lot of people have done it with other agents in the office and put the business under the big producer's name, right? But I said, I want to be the first guy to do 50 million of annuities under my own pen. So 2008, I got really focused and I wrote 50 million of annuity business, right? Woke up January 1st, 2009 and said, okay, we've got a lot of advisors that have joined us. In fairness to them now, I need to flip. I need to be a mentor first and foremost and an advisor second. And frankly, what I've learned is it's the mentorship that I really get excited about. I really get jazzed about. Because at the beginning, T-Mac, we would actually mentor advisors how to manage income generating securities, bonds, preferreds, high dividend stocks, right? We taught people how to do that. And I just gave that away along with how to market your business, how to sell, how to manage your practice. But then a lot of them came back and said, we appreciate the generosity, but we want you to make money on the money management. We get a bond called, a preferred called. It takes us 2-3 days of research. We don't want to be research analysts. We want to be asset gatherers, right? So we started our RIA in 2014, and we brought our only 4 advisors on in 2015 because I wanted to make sure, we could fulfill what we're promising, that the wheels didn't come off. And of course, by 2019, we're well over the $1 billion mark in terms of AUM. But it started not as a way to monetize it. It started really as a passion, something that I just love helping advisors and mentoring advisors. And then, of course, that in 2019, we actually started the franchise, the Retirement Income Source, formerly known as the Retirement Income Store, now the Retirement Income Source, which is actually a franchise for advisors who really want to become income specialists and want concierge handholding along the way. So, T-Mac, this podcast is really just another way for us to help people. I have phone calls every day with people across the country who have never worked with us. For whatever reason, they can't work with us. Their business model won't allow, but I know I've helped them grow their business. There's a guy I mentored in the early 2000s that finally joined us 2 years ago because he remembered us, it came back, right? So my whole life is about helping financial advisors, whether they join us or not. And this is just another forum that we can use to do that, to give advice, to help the industry grow with a good reputation, not a black eye, keep the industry clean, keep people successful, and have advisors actually enjoying it. Because this can be a really crappy business, to be honest, if you're not doing well, and a really cool and exciting and fun business if you are doing well. And that's my mission as you well know, is to help anybody that wants to hear our message. We'll shout it from the tallest roof. Of course, we're only on the 3rd floor now, so
Right.
not really the tallest roof. To teach people all the things that you really need to know to attract, not chase, and to make this business as fun as it possibly can. At the same time, we're helping to make you as successful as you possibly can.
You have been listening to the Elevated Advisor Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your colleagues. If you would like to talk about elevating your financial firm, reach out to us at theelevatedadvisorpodcast.com. Investment advisory services offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. Sound Income Strategies, LLC, and the Retirement Income Source, LLC are associated entities.